Good evening and welcome to tonight's Monday Live, joined by Jasper, he of the perfectly coiffed hair. It isn't a wig, it is genuinely his own hair.
It's going well at the moment. We'll see what we can do.
The comb
with
marks, I mean, stunning.
Takes a lot of effort. Well, actually, not that much effort. You'll be surprised in the mornings.
No? Is it ready to go the moment you wake up?
Get some stuff in it and just go. Let's get to work.
Puts me to shame, really. One's just sort of scruffed up. But anyway, you probably ought to talk about golf rather than styling issues.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Weekend, Fitzpatrick partnership win.
Pretty special, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? That partnership is cool. The brother act.
Yeah, because Alex caddied for Matt when he won the US Amateur.
Yeah, and they've sort of been growing up from little kids and sort of helping each other out the whole way through their careers, which is it's perfect, isn't it?
I mean, just imagine you're the parents there. The whole family were there last week. Imagine watching them going and winning together, and now Alex has got a 2-year exemption on PGA Tour.
Yeah, special that, where to jump. For winning on DP World.
Yeah. A few weeks back.
Yeah, a few weeks back, and then thinking to yourself, right, well, I've won already, and then also to obviously be exempt is pretty. You must be happy right now.
I'd say Matt's on a pretty poor run. I mean, actually, to be fair, Alex has been, the runner form he's been on, very, very steady. But then Matt's his is pretty average.
Yes. He's pretty doing well, doing pretty well so far, isn't it? But that bunker shot at the last was.
Considering actually how he hadn't been that good. There were. I was watching. I didn't watch all of it, but I saw some of the highlights earlier. And there was a wedge shot that he just hit, flushed through the back of a green. And when not on your game, and this is the real mark of the best players, isn't it? That he didn't choose the chunk and run. He flew it the whole darn way.
He was like, I need to get this done and just do it in style, if that makes sense. And he backed himself on that. And there was a few shots early on in the round where I think his brother. Key moments, I guess, in the round 2 always win, but there's where his brother hit like a lob shot on the back of off the back of the green, and made it land like a butterfly with sort of feet, and then sort of that's, I think, again, that's like a bit of a turning momentum point for them. Make par, see you later, let's go, and carry on the momentum.
Yeah, I think, is he world number 3 now?
Well, he has just he's up there close, isn't he? Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
And then on the ladies' tour, Nelly Corder, first major of the year. Just dominated it.
Yeah,
just when I'll have that. Thank you very much.
Again, it's quite nice to see her back, isn't it? Yeah. And playing some solid stuff. She struggled a little bit.
Rhythmic swing. I mean, she's when she's flowing and swinging well, she's a beautiful golfer to watch.
Yeah, it's just that high draw on, just locked in. It's just end over end, so repeatable, which is nice.
Yeah, wire to wire, hard to do. I mean, you'd go on deep in the first round, and then I think it was a 4 or 5 shot win in the end. I mean, that's a statement victory, really. She's saying and now back to world number 1 as well. Yeah, very, very impressive.
Very good.
And then Lottie and Charlie were top 10s as well.
Yeah,
nice,
that's good.
Nice for the English girls.
Yeah, still there or thereabouts, aren't they? Still knocking on the door.
Yep.
And they'll win. I'm sure they'll win very, very soon, won't they? Again. And then DP World had Brent Vispo.
Yeah, and obviously been at Live, come back. It was the China Open. Yeah, I didn't actually get to watch a lot of it.
Yeah, I didn't watch loads.
Fabulous coat he got to wear at the end of it.
I was having a little look at his what's in the bag though. Yeah. That's first, obviously win with GTS as well. Yeah. So he got fitted, I think, there was a video a couple of weeks where he was at Woburn. At the centre there, at the Excellence Centre.
Yeah, he's long-term type.
Got fitted. Yeah, I don't think he's ever played much else, really, is he? But yeah, it's nice to, again, obviously GTS is going to be a big talking point coming forward within the industry, which we've obviously hit it. It's,
I mean, was it officially this Friday, isn't it, I think? 29th is McLaren announcement. Another piece of info.
Big one today.
A little bit about that we can't talk about yet. But I think the interesting about GTS, obviously you got the win through Burnt there, but is also the amount of GTS4s starting to be played. There are kind of 3 or 4 in play when there've only been 2, I think, in the last couple of years played. That it appears to not just be just the low spin bomber that it was before for someone either silly speed or silly spinning.
Definitely, there's a few guys even on tour which were in GT2 and they've obviously switched into that for a bit of forgiveness and stuff, but they're actually going back to they've said they're going back to a small traditional profile, but can shift weight back, and it's actually making their, sort of suiting their eye, but almost playing a bit like a forgiveness, like a 2, I've been saying. So, I think the 4's come to life again.
Yeah, and it's a little bit bigger this year.
Yeah.
But we better be careful. We can't say any more.
No, we better go easy.
Maybe next week. Is it next week? When's the embargo lift on that? 1 or 2 weeks' time. But immediate. I think that immediate reaction of the players, I think an awful lot do seem to have switched straight away, which I think that always says a lot when there's a product launch. If it doesn't take them too much time to get it in the bag, then you know it's a good one.
Definitely, Be interesting to see what, obviously there's pictures out there. Again, we can't go too deep, but the face contrast with the woods is quite exciting, quite cool. Yeah. I think the general public will really like it, rather than just being like a proto tour type thing.
Yeah, no, it's very different. I think that it differentiates them from the other brands. I think it's a very, very clean line as well. So,
Very much so. Right, first question. Evening all. Fairway woods, are shallow faces better for everyone, or do deep faces suit some players?
The answer is I think a deeper face suits some players. I think shallow faces in the main. If you're someone who picks it and you need, essentially you're kind of lifting the ball off the turf rather than hitting down into it. The more you hit down into it, actually a slightly higher centre of gravity in the head suits. Or if you play it a lot off the tee, a slightly deeper head can look a lot more appealing and more comfortable. For a lot of players, sometimes actually the shallower heads, if you hit more of a higher spin cut, they can pop the ball up a little bit too much. So there are multiple scenarios where actually a slightly deeper head off the ground and off a tee can be preferable. But again, it's all about the player's delivery. But ultimately for us, it's important to have the range of options available. But probably more players, the shallow face looks easier to use off the ground. I think that's a major.
I think that's why the ping fairway is, if you need something to just get a little bit of launch and a bit of spin and collection off the deck, the ping fairway wood has always been so good for that.
Yeah, and the recent Callaway's similar, just as shallow
fantastic.
as well.
But then you'll see a fair few like non-contracted pros out there which will have more tailor-made profile woods, which they're a little deeper in the face because they can hit down.
Yeah, they tend to
squeeze it a bit to get that compression, but they'll probably use it a bit more of like a secondary tee club, maybe.
I think even in the higher lofted heads as well, because otherwise, if it potentially for some higher speed players, if you get a bit of shaft lean, the strike point moves up the face, and if the CG sits too low, you get a dead spot, and then it knuckles the spin. So actually, if you where they tend to get into a sort of stronger kind of shaft-led delivery, the strike point moves up the face as the loft goes up. So hence, you might see, like Tiger always used an M3 or an M5 in his 5-wood. That deeper face sometimes does work.
Good morning from California, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Can you explain how tipping a fairway wood shaft, -1 inch or stiff hazardous black, would you compare an an X-Flex 10Z Blue Raw with the respect to flight, distance and spin? Can you explain tipping fairway? Okay.
So essentially, when you're tipping a shaft, it doesn't matter whether it's steel or graphite, but essentially the tip section is the thinnest bit of the shaft, and so you generally in graphite wood shafts will have about 3 inches of parallel section at the bottom. Now, in essence, the parallel section, the longer that is, the softer it plays. Whereas you'll notice on iron shafts that have steps in, the stiffer it is, the closer to the tip that last step is. So essentially, you're trying to, by tipping it an inch, you're shortening that parallel section by an inch, and there's less that can kind of move around. Does it affect the actual raw kind of playing flex of the shaft by a lot? No, but it reduces a little bit of that recovery through the bottom. The lower down that bend point is, I guess the faster that recovery is, and essentially adds a little bit of dynamic loft. So by tipping it by an inch, you're firming up the bottom section, you're reducing a little bit of head rotation, and so you're dropping fractionally launch, but a little bit of spin as well. Is it vast? No. It will feel a little bit firmer, but an inch, I would say, a couple of hundred revs maybe, 250.
Yeah. And also, I guess you could always, if you're going for an X in the fairway as a flex to get a certain weight bracket, you could also possibly only tip it like ½ inch to feel like there's a little bit more collection at the bottom. Possibly, I've done that in the past where I've gone for and then I've done it opposite where I've gone for a stiff to get the weight bracket, but then I've also firmed it up and tip to, again, make it a little on the firmer side.
Yeah, it's a bit like with iron shafts, you're soft stepping or hard stepping. So obviously you can't soft step a wood shaft because you can't tip it less than it comes out at, but you would put minimal or no tipping. So there are times where if you want the body of the shaft to feel a bit firmer, but you don't want to make it feel too harsh, you might go to the stiffer shaft and not tip it. And if you want someone to have a little bit more play in the shaft but achieve similar characteristics, you might use the softer shaft and tip it a little bit more just to try and kind of get that middle ground. Ultimately, the flight dynamics aren't massively different, but some players respond better to a firmer feel or a softer feel, and then you're managing the tip section to help manage the launch and spin more. However, a degree of loft will make way more difference than tipping a shaft.
It's small. It's just quite
fine-tuned.
Unique feels, aren't they, really, when you get to that precise. At Gerald Sturgis 6686, have you fitted any Ventus White driver shafts for seniors or slower swing speeds? I actually fitted one about 45 minutes ago.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm all good on this.
Yeah. The answers are yes.
Yes, definitely. So it was actually, really nice. So the guy came from Acra GX, sort of like one of the older finishers, which was absolutely fine, more into the midsection. But we went to the Ventus White again. It's been a couple of years since he had visited us, and then just dropped the weight a little bit, but it still keeps it quite firm and stable.
Yeah.
And his face at impact, he's quite inside, but his face was really quite shut and was coming in through shut. So I was almost going on a little bit of a journey of trying to gain him a little bit of speed and doing some stuff with that, but also just trying to maintain the face doesn't flex impact and trying to keep that sort of quite square and stable for him.
Yeah, the Vertical White, the Ventus White, ultimately is a lighter weight option, but it's still a very stable option. It's possibly one of the more stable options at that weight. So the balance is a little near the bottom end. And if you want to drop a bit of weight but keep a solid feel, then there's a bit more to hit against with that than some of the other lighter weight options. So it's a really nice for someone who's used to swinging maybe something a little bit heavier and doesn't want to give up that solidity, I think.
Exactly. I think that's just on the head, But he just felt he could stand there with lightweight, but just feel like he could just turn through it and rip through it and just be a bit more confident with it. He knew that shaft or that face wasn't going to deviate or flex too much.
Yeah, the Velicore, even in that lightweight, just hangs onto the head a little bit better through impact from a feel point of view. Yeah, and it's been a really good addition. So yes, is the answer to that.
There you go.
JBill8802. Hi Simon, is the Ping Tour Chrome 2.0 shaft similar to a blue profile? It's the Tour Chrome and black are a little more stout through midsection. So a blue profile, if you're going on Mitsubishi, like for example, Diamana Blue, is a very, very even, it's stable in the tip, stable in the butt section, but it's a very, very smooth bend profile through. So it's really kind of mid-launch, mid-low spin, someone might describe it as, but ultimately there's no really prominent stiff and soft sections to the shaft. It's a very, very uniform, best way of describing it, but it's a very, very gradual progression through the shaft rather than, might get a shaft like take a white profile is way more stiff in the bottom third. So it provides a very, very smooth feel. Something like if we're looking at a blue profile in a Fujikura terminology, take something like a Ventus is still actually quite a stiff tip, but it's just less harsh at the top end. So depending on which blue you mean, the Chrome 2.0 is more similar to a Ventus blue profile than it is a Diamana blue profile. That it's a bit more stout through the midsection.
And then the black is getting a little bit more stout, and black is quite. I've always thought the black, that new edition when they brought that black out for driver and fairway, it's quite sturdy. It's quite sturdy, isn't it?
Yeah. And the Chrome's a little higher balance point as well. So that's another thing to take into account. It just sits with the balance a little higher up the shaft too. Yeah. Looks nice.
But good shafts though. Actually, they are from. When I say that, they don't get quite enough recognition. Those Ping.
No, Ping their stock shafts have always been. I mean, historically they partnered with US team Mamiya in particular over the years, and they are now or about to. They're kind of transitioning or have just transitioned to make their own shafts. But they have genuinely been pretty good quality shafts, and the Alters haven't really changed over the years. They're a lower grade shaft, but they're not designed to be as structurally stout. But they've been very consistent with their offerings over the years, I would say.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Tractor Boy Dave, I hope you are from Ipswich.
They're fighting for, just to mention, they're fighting for second place right now.
You saying that as a supporter?
Well, no, I mean
or with glee because
no,
you're,
just
you're not
like me and Dave would be on the same page here that we've got our fingers crossed. They're going to perform. They're going to perform in the next couple of games. They're going to get it done and get it.
I thought he was going the other way. Like a Norwich fan, he wanted to go down.
None of that.
So those from the States, the Ipswich football team nickname are the Tractor Boys because they're from Norfolk. Good evening, chaps. I would like a wedge fitting. How do PG do a fitting off of a mat? How does it compare to a turf fitting in regards to bounce and grind? So the key thing to remember here is the piece of turf that you are fitted on is not the piece of turf you play off. So actually doing a wedge fitting off turf is not as important as you might think because you're only looking at a very specific set of conditions on that day. It rains the following day, it's different turf conditions. Bakes out in summer over here, it's different turf conditions. So the one thing in the UK that we get is rock hard in summer with softer sand. And so in principle, a kind of a tighter grind would work for those conditions. But then, around London where we are, you get clay and then it goes wet and soggy and sodden in the winter with rock hard bunkers because they get wet. So the requirements from the wedge differs season to season. But ultimately we're looking at wedge fitting. Shaft fitting is about timing and control and consistency of low point and strike point. So the weight dynamics, as we would fit any other part of the bag, critical for wedges. And then we're looking at distance gaps and what job do you want each wedge to do. So we will use a strike board to show the player where the contact point on the sole is, not in the same way as when we don't use them for lie, but actually for front-back contact point. It can be really useful to kind of display to the player what they're doing. But you're looking at delivery. Are you someone who works under and opens the face? Are you someone who de-lofts and delivers the front edge? So all the same things that you do off turf, but even looking at a divot pattern on turf, it doesn't actually tell you which bit of the sole you're delivering. So in the same way that on a map, you're just looking at divot depths.
You're also trying to gather, within that session, you're trying to gather as much history and as much data around what this person is using this wedge from their previous set, what they want to gain from their previous set, what they've been lacking. If you can gain all those little details and all that information, go even more into the course depth of where they're playing.
Yeah, as I say, where they're playing. Most of your golf play is huge.
All that variety. And I've actually been doing more of in the bay, we've got like a 2-mat system. So we have a main mat and then we have a front mat. But we also have the main mat, which is sunk in.
Which is the front mat.
But then you've got also middle sections and then side sections. So you can actually play from a mat which goes a little more spongy. And then you can actually go from like the tight midsection.
Yeah.
So
we can use the main strike mat to look at kind of a general pitching and a contact point data-wise, but the bit in between is a tighter, firmer surface. So in the same way that on a firmer ground, you might not be able to hear this, but if someone catches it behind the ball, you can hear the contact with the ground, then it bounces into the back of the ball. So you can hear that contact really, really clearly, versus a consistent clean contact.
It's just gliding under the golf
really
ball.
Different audibly. And actually that change in the mat surface is really quite useful to display the player. Tighter, firmer summer conditions, softer winter conditions.
And then that, especially when you go to that tight mats section in here, you can then talk about the grind situation if you do want to open that wedge up slightly. And then that really shows what happens if you go to a playing season in the summer in the UK.
Yeah.
And then you're replicating that, but then you can also replicate a soft. So, yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
I mean, actually, it's something that most people believe that the perfect wedge fitting is on turf, but actually none is really perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been out to the Titleist TPI, and the turf they have there is actually too good. You know, it's almost wedges is not my best bit of the bag. Yet I couldn't miss off that turf, and you can play a low 40-yard wedge with a load of spin, which is impossible to over here because of the kind of turf you got there. So actually, the bit of turf you're fitted on and the shots you're hitting might not be relevant to where you play your golf. If you're on a links and you go and get fitted at Woburn, it's totally different turf.
Yeah, so true.
With Titleist, that is, because that's their fitting centre in the UK. So actually understanding the player's course, how they deliver it, using TrackMan data, looking at angle of attack, looking at actual kind of launch and spin numbers, consistency of those, and understanding someone's delivery and where they play, it's about putting that all in the melting pot and going, right, what do we need those clubs to do, and what's the main priority for the player? But yeah, there are different, with wedges, there are different ways of skinning the cat. Fewer wedges and more distance, loft gaps between them, and more wedges and smaller gaps, and therefore bounce variations. So yeah, there are lots of different ways.
As long as they all do their certain job and they all you have a tool for different shots.
Yeah.
Like high bounce, I like a bell, so it goes low, high, low type system. You have it. And if you've got all your wedges which are all linear and all the same bounce, that's...
Yeah, although, again, I know we're going on this question a little bit. However, if you're playing somewhere where, taking stateside where there's a load of overseeding, it might never get really firm and the ball sits up a little bit more. So actually playing a higher bounce all the way through, say here, we just described the difference in conditions, you've got to have those variables. Otherwise, you've got nothing. You can sit tight and then another club that you can sit with loads of bounce to cover the different conditions off. Whereas if you play like Florida, for example, bits of it, it's lush, thick grass and the ball sits up. So if you play low bounce there, you're knackered any time of year. So it's about picking the right solution for the player and where they play the majority of their golf. And if you play lots of different courses, then actually having a couple of wedges with different bounce scenarios, which is what the pros will do, then means you're not having to change your action too much for those different courses if you are lucky enough to play lots of different courses regularly.
Perfect.
But yeah, great question. Great question. Sicko Golf. Looking forward to another great show. Thank you very much. Anyway you could hit and or compare the DM on a whiteboard and blueboard in a 3-wood, looking for differences in spin and trajectory. Thanks. And Ivan's question, we can't answer that one yet.
But you would have seen a certain player go into their lineup. You see that at lunchtime?
Oh, that's been announced. Yeah.
So you have
Justin,
you would have seen Justin Rose has gone into their lineup, which is pretty cool. Big news for him. But good move, I think. It'll be interesting, but a good move for him. And I think he's not silly. I think yes, there'll be a few people which creep out of the woodwork and say that will be the same as what's happened with him in the past with Honma. I don't think that's that's no problem.
That's no
with there. No, I think
he is an investor.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
He's going to put a lot behind it, and I think that's a really nice move. And for McCarran, that's big for them.
Yeah,
and to get someone like that and to see who follows after, it's exciting, but also it's cool guy to have.
I think the one thing that we probably can say about it, this isn't just a kind of flash in the pan. We're doing this kind of half-ass. It is going to be done properly. So it is not just a partnership thing. They are doing this properly. That's all we can say for now.
Yeah.
And the answer to your question, you never know. Glean from that what you will. So, right. Going to use a Ping 440 Max fairway wood, so pretty neutral in terms of head style. Going to start with the DMR and the blue board. So in principle, blue board, softer middle section, still stable in the tip, but relative to whiteboard, should flight it a little higher. Now I'm going to qualify my swing today by saying I played yesterday and I'm a bit stiff. Carrying a bag for the first time in ages. I'm getting old.
So you even thinking about going to a trolley?
Oh yeah, 100%.
The electric trolley is coming.
Not the electric one, just a lightweight push trolley. Yeah. I haven't gone to the depths of the electric trolley yet. So in principle, this should be kind of, and I find these heads fairly low spin. So I'd expect this to be kind of upper mid launch, but not to overspin. So solid hit. Slightly heel side, hence it's geared a little left to right. 11.5 launch, 3.5 spin. Let's give it one more go here. A little low on the face, but you get, out of the blue, you get a little bit of give through that midsection. It's not loose at the bottom end, but there's definitely a little bit of extra bit of pop through the shaft.
It's like a last minute sort of, it's a last minute sort of feel, isn't it? It just adds in, throws in there for you. Rather than I find the white is a little bit more sort of firmer, you can just sort of rip through it a little on the more of aggressive.
Yeah, I think that's with this series of Diamantas. I think that the blue profile gives a little bit more. I think you notice a bit more of the middle section kick because I think the tip is a bit tighter than they have been in the past. I remember kind of first time hitting and thinking actually it really kind of felt like it held onto the club head. Yeah,
the old series did, didn't it? Or the original.
I think this one, I think the tip's quite tight, but you feel the give in the middle a little bit more, I think. So going to the white, balance point moves down the shaft a little bit. The blue's very, very evenly weighted. The white board goes a little kind of lower half. So there's a bit more to hit against with this. So just let's get into it a little bit more. Caught that slightly low on the face. But again, what you can see here, and between the two different shaft profiles, ultimately there's not an awful lot. So, because the head style and your player's delivery will affect it much more than shaft profile will. So what you do get is, so for somebody who's a little more aggressive, the whiteboard is going to feel a bit more stable, give a bit more to hit against, might feel more comfortable and let you swing a little more freely.
Nice.
But spin-wise on the cleaner hits, only 100 odd revs difference, because ultimately these shafts aren't changing the amount they bow back and forth by that much. If you think it's only looking at that section of the shaft, it's a little more stout here, therefore there's not that much more change in delivered loft. Hence the flight doesn't really change.
Yeah, no.
So
quite clever. It's quite a good series.
It's a strong. It's quite a different feel, but actually the flight dynamics, you're unlikely to see massive differences, but one will time and swing and feel a little bit more comfortable.
Let's give Simon a break on hitting for 1 second. So we'll jump to a question and we'll jump back. Got Andy Corso, 8498. Evening all. Can you talk about how the Atera A02 blue shaft plays? What does it compare to? Many thanks.
So one thing we've noticed from the A02 series is a bit more club speed.
Yeah, I find it boosts you up, actually.
Yeah. And what they've done differently structurally with the A02 series is you've got linear ply and bias ply, which normally you get a core of one and then a batch of another kind of layered. With the A02 series, there's one layer of linear, line layer of bias, one layer of linear, one layer of bias. So it's interwoven.
It's like a wicker basket, really, isn't it? It's like weaving around itself.
Nice description, yeah.
Quite cool, isn't it?
So it's essentially a slightly more even loading and bending of the shaft. You haven't got kind of either a harder kind of. So linear core is about stiffness in the that way, and bias core is more about rotational stability. So you've actually got, it's a smoother feel as a result, but you've also got potentially a kind of a smoother loading of the shaft. So that series, I remember when we first hit it, it felt like the whole shaft actually kind of loaded.
And reacts to you and how you move it, doesn't
Yeah,
it? From
kind
the
of flow
grey
through the
and the
shaft a little
blue.
bit.
It suits like me and Mark and a few of the other guys were having a chat the other day about this, and actually it's quite unique and it's quite a unicorn where it fits. You could fit a hell of a lot of people into it from that 75 all the way to the 45.
Yeah.
So you could 1 minute you could fit someone really quite quick, who's more like 120 miles per hour, and then you could also fit someone who's a little on the slower side into that 45 system in the blue, and then it's just been quite impressive to be fair.
And I think they're between the blue and the grey, a bit like in the EC1 series, the only difference is the tip stability. You know, that section's just a bit stiffer in the grey than the blue. But they swing, the grey swing a little more tip heavy. The blues are really, I think it's a very neutral, very inoffensive profile, so to speak. But I think with the weights and the different flexes, you can. I think in the AO2 series, you can move up and down the flexes to dial in and up and down the stiffness, the stability of the shaft, without really affecting anything else in the way it swings. I think in the EC1, it affected the dead weight and the way they felt a little bit more. But you can kind of play around with those a little bit more to stabilise the midsection or soften it down a little bit, for example, to suit the swing without anything else really changing.
It's also got like a little. It's been enhanced with like a really quite nice paint, really nice paint system, and it's like from the grey to the blue with the white and the greys involved, rather than the EC series was possibly a little bit more under the radar.
Yeah, and you see a bit more of the materials as well, which is
it's
nice.
Quite, again, it's just good.
Yeah, been impressive.
Horse racing legends. Good evening. Alexander flushing his new driver.
Yeah, great stuff.
Thank you so much. Could Simon here Titleist T100 with an Oban CT115 and compare it with a Project X 6.5 rifle?
That's quite a difference, no problem.
Good job you're not stiff.
I'm glad you didn't say a 7.0.
Let's have a little look. Evening, gents. Quick pros and cons between Sinister versus Ventus Velocore Plus Blue. Velocore Plus Blue is going to be more mid to low with the weight distribution, but obviously still, because the Velocore Plus, it will still maintain a fairly stiff tip section. When you go to the Sinister, lovely family company, VA Composites from America, Victor's done a great job there. But when you go to the Sinister, I've always thought it's quite firm, stable, quite bottom heavy. Simon actually plays the Sinister.
In the stiff it is.
Yeah.
As you go up the flexes into the X's, they tend to even the balance out a little bit. Yeah.
Quite interesting.
Smooth feel. Not too harsh on the handle, but it's only in the stiff. The X, the mid and upper section definitely firm up, and I think that's where that balance changes. But no, it's been a great shaft for me.
I just find the Velocore Plus Blue is just a little higher with the balance, but it still does mean it.
Slightly heavier, a couple of grams heavier. It's way smoother than the first gen. It's definitely a more responsive profile, the Velocore Plus, than the OG Ventus. But the Sinister, you swing the bottom end more, noticeably more.
Yeah. Nice that you've and I like the idea of you've gone down the Ventus route, but also you're trying to compare it with the VA family as well, because they're a little bit more niche. They don't get probably looked at as much, but they do some really nice stuff.
Yeah, and the designs are cool as well.
Yeah, it's very nice. Right.
So I've got the X in the CT115 just because I thought relative to a 6.5 Project X, it made more sense to compare that. So I play the CT115s in a S minus actually. The dead weight of where that sits for me just suits. And the guys at Oban, they thought I should be playing stiffer, but actually the heavier weights just don't time as well for me. But really, the one thing I've noticed with these through the bag is where in other sets of irons, in the shorter irons, the spin can kind of flare a little bit. The flight's really stable all the way through the set. But a very, very smooth feel, very evenly weighted. They swing easily as a shaft. So you get a little bit back through the shaft, but they don't take a lot of effort to get through the ball. They're not a counterbalance shaft, not high balance, but they're very, very neutral. But they do tend to keep swing weight down a little bit more than you might expect. But yeah, just there's a bit of pop but it's just stable through the ball. It's just a very smooth, really good quality steel. Actually, they really are Japanese steel, made in conjunction with Shimada and extruded, which means they're pressed rather than joined, pressed through a cylindrical hole to kind of form the shape. So there is no bond.
The quality is amazing, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Come in 2 finishes: chrome and a finish called silk, which is quite cool. It's like a dulled
Soft satin, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like soft. Yeah, it's quite cool.
They are nice.
Yeah,
Little dear as a result, because there are several different processes to create that silk finish. But yeah, no, they do look nice. Yeah. So Project X, noticeably more stout through that midsection. So the Project X is really designed, historically it was designed for Phil Mickelson by Kim Brady, really designed for a heavier load with the shaft. So he tends to kind of hang on tight through that midsection. Yeah, people would say responsive tip. There's a bit of kick in the tip section, but it's kind of like a very low torque wood shaft to be how I describe this one. But the dead weight is up about 10 grams. So I have got to work harder with this to kind of get the club through. I absolutely ripped that one. Actually, pretty darn similar from a flight point of view. Again, a bit like those wood shaft, the Diamana series. The player and the head style, the player's delivery and the head style will dictate what the pitch and the launch and the spin are, much more than bend profile will. But I've got to work that a heck of a lot harder, and I've got to fetch that through. Whereas for the O-bends, for me, where I don't pull on the handle as much as I used to, I can just turn and collect it more easily. So a little bit more kick from the O-bend, heavier, more stout, but definitely needs working the result out of the Project X, whereas the O-bends give you a little bit more back, and they're about 10 grams.
You could, if you're in between those two, you could possibly try I-Series. I-Series Red, Macra. Possibly.
Yeah, a little more tip heavy.
A little bit tip heavy though.
Or, I mean, in terms of if you're between actually Project X Red and the 6.5, that sits a little more towards the Project X. It is a Project X, but it sits a bit more towards that from a stability point of view. But that sits at 120 grams. You're at 115, 116 in the X of the O-bends, 124, 125 in the 6.5.
Project X, yeah. Nice. So look. Big Mac, Pappy.
Thank you for that handle. Enjoyed that.
Is it possible that shorter driver shafts aren't for everyone? Tested a 44.5 versus 45.5 and was more consistent with a longer shaft. Grip and swing weight were matched on both setups. Okay,
yeah, so that was the one point that could have made a difference. If they're the same swing weight, well, actually, they won't swing the same. So swing weight, one thing to remember, swing weight, it's a static measure, not a dynamic one. So it doesn't take into account how it moves. So actually, to make them swing the same, the longer one would need to be a heavier swing weight than the shorter one. However, you're right, it isn't for everyone. Shorter shaft, actually the chap that I had in this afternoon, we went from a 45-inch shaft to 43.5 and he picked up distance because he could square it better. But for some players, that longer, heavier kind of swinging club can be better as well.
Yeah,
so.
And if you've got, I guess, if you're decent with driver and you've got that control aspect in there and you're a guy who just hits fairways and you're middle, well, yeah, why not go a little bit longer? That's known to get you a little bit extra, but also, again, it's not for everyone, is it?
No,
I think like you just said, you have people in which actually give them a freebird shaft. And they get it miles and they're more comfortable with that, and they just can.
Manage the face and the plane better.
Yeah, that's exactly that. You're moving something which is a little shorter on a better plane, and then confidence-wise, you can just rip through it, maybe and turn through it in a different manner and a bit harder, I guess.
Yeah, and you see it on tour. You got the average length driver on tour is between 44.5 and 45, but then Will Zalatoris a few years back went 45.5, went an inch longer to 45.5 from what he was playing because the guy was the straightest, one of the longest straighter drivers on tour, and actually he could manage the face well, could manage strike well, and therefore gained from it. But that generally, if you take across golfers of all standards, that's the minority. But if your technique's good and you're comfortable with that longer length, you might pick up. Might pick up 5 to 10 yards, or so. I love turtle. Good evening, sir. Quick pros and cons between you've done that one already. Well, good evening to you anyway. So EROE, Simon, I play a Callaway Elite 3HL with a graphite design IZ stiff shaft. If I want coming with that would launch it a little higher. Oh, if you want something that would launch it a little higher, what would you recommend? Ventus Red TR. No, try a 5 wood. Like we've just shown there, shaft profile itself, unless you're changing weight noticeably to allow you to deliver the club differently, shaft profile is going to be minimal. Use the club head. So the Elites, really good heads, but tended to produce a slightly stronger spin rate. It could be a slightly different head style, like actually the G430. Max would probably launch and spin it just a little bit more, but if it's just launch, then go from the 3HL up to a 5 wood. Whether it's the Quantum's not overly high spin, or even maybe a G440 Max, and you will see tangible launch difference out of that. But just shaft profile, chances are it's not going to do a lot.
Yeah, no, it's probably more of a head thing.
Paul M2885, hi guys, how does the Fujikura Pro Blue compare to a standard Tensei inner driver? Same profile but more expensive carbon ?
Good question, actually. So I would, so more midsection balance, definitely. And I've always thought the tip is a little bit more responsive. You've got responsiveness in there, but it still maintains it very strong and a bit more stable. It's like a...
It's what the higher grade material allows them to do.
Yeah, and it hasn't been stripped of that stuff. It's actually, the Fuji Pro series is actually... It's always been around, hasn't it, for a long, long time, but it's never quite got the recognition that Ventus did. But it's almost just sits behind that as a slightly different price point, doesn't it? So actually, if you're looking at a Ventus and you think to yourself, oh, it's quite a punchy number, don't be afraid to try that Fuji Pro series actually into the black or into the blue and just give it a go.
Yeah, they're
nice. They're really nice.
Less
shafts.
premium than a Ventus, but actually still there's a lot of the tech that they've gleaned over the years. They're a great series of shaft that actually price point isn't crazy. And I think the Tensei will have a slightly softer, more responsive, slightly less torsionally stable tip section, which will add a bit more spin. The Fuji Pro Blue is better grade materials, which hangs on a little tighter at impact and will keep the spin in check a little bit more than the Tensei, I would say.
Between all these Tenseis, there's lots of different Tenseis. Like the companies going to the manufacturer and getting a Tensei, but they're all different. They're all different color codes, and they're all gonna
raw.
Yeah, they're all gonna change a little bit between company to company and whoever gets them and how they make them for that batch. I guess, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I guess they're not all going to be the Tensei from Titleist, a Tensei from. They're all going to be a little bit different in the ways, aren't they?
A little bit. I mean, the one thing that they aren't doing anymore is Mitsubishi in particular aren't doing. If they've got one, and it's either going to be coming out as a sort of an entry-level aftermarket option as well. And you like the 1K Black it's not a cheap shitty made for shaft. It is one that they've actually made that they retail as a proper aftermarket option as well. Rather than just putting a logo on it, watering it down. So that is one thing with Mitsubishi in particular that you won't see from them is just it is a variant on the Tensei series, but it is one that you can get from Mitsubishi as well if you wanted to, rather than just being a kind of made for only. Just a Golf Nerd 16 got new ping irons fitted by Jasper a few months ago, working well. Relief. Really want a mini driver. How long do you think I have to wait for the ping one? What about a shorter shaft in my ping driver? So the shorter shaft in the ping driver isn't a bad option. I guess the one thing with the mini drivers is they're designed to play at the shorter length, so the head weight is set up for that 43.5, 43 3/4 inch length. The pings you can get weight into. They generally work well at a short length because the frame weights are a little heavier. It's often with the mini drivers, a lot of them are higher lofts because actually, if you're wanting the mini driver to sit alongside a driver, it needs to be more lofted and spin a bit more to differentiate. If you're wanting it to be a mini driver, it sounds like it's the same thing, but it's a shorter driver that's just a bit more playable, then actually shortening the shaft in your driver could be a really good option.
Yeah, before,
I think that
and
makes
again,
sense.
pop back and we can have a little test of it, it's fine. But yeah, that might be the way to go first. But the R7 is back.
Yeah.
So R7 will have 11 and a half, 13 and a half, and there'll be a 15 and a half being
I don't
soon,
believe that's
or
coming.
Not yet.
I don't believe that's coming, yeah. I did speak to him about it. I don't think the 15 and a half is being brought over to Europe. There is a Callaway in 11 and a half, 13 and a half as well.
Got the PXG.
There's the Cobra one, the PXG. I haven't had the date. I'm not sure I had the confirmed date on the Ping yet. We've seen some kind of
there's pictures, obviously, the
pictures out
Proto
there,
series, whether they'll bring it out in mass or whether it'll be more of like a small batch type situation with the Ping. You're not sure yet. The nice thing is with the R7, you can, again, the manoeuvrable weights are obviously good, nice in that.
The R7's really versatile.
Yeah,
it
so
was a very good
strong.
all-round head. But the Cobra's proven absolute cannon as well. That's a really underrated head then. Yeah. Tony, by the way, hi Simon. If a club is D2 swing weight, how much head weight is removed to bring it to D0? Thanks. Roughly 4 grams. So it's roughly 2 grams per swing weight point. So D2 to D0, if you get 4 grams out, that should do the trick. Cat GPT. Simon, my goat. I'm not quite sure what it is that symbol represents. I'm not going to speculate on that. I'm sure it's something very nice, but thank you. Much appreciated. B Babbins 45, how should you determine the makeup of your iron set? How do you know where to start them at the top end or when to move from set wedge to specialty wedge? Well, the top end's actually fairly easy because there comes a point where there's just not enough spin and launch to keep the thing in the air and give you comfortably more carry or more value in terms of carry over the previous iron. So that's why we test with a 6, because it actually shows you that top end a lot more easily than a 7 iron.
Almost a little harder as well, isn't it? In testing, we want to put you under a bit of stress and make life a little harder, which is good.
Tough guy. This
And
one.
then when you get the 8 and 9, it will just be easy.
But it's really if we're looking for that flight and the height and the spin number. Once that drops a little bit too low, unless you've got a decent bit of speed, then 3,500 revs is too low. 4,000 really is about the bottom end of where you want to be with an iron. So that the top end is actually quite easy in that respect. Bottom end.
We're quite lucky where we've got a lot of different head options, to be honest. So we've got the set wedges and we've got like the A wedges from companies. We've got the Vokeys in 44, 46 and all the other ones. We've got T100 pitch and wedge. We've got and the A wedge. We've got all of them to test, which is fantastic. Player-wise, it depends what you want that for, I guess, whether do you struggle to hit that sort of gap wedge / full shot number? And is it that solely just for hitting a number in a full shot club? Or is it going to be sort of one where are you going to chip and pitch up the green with it? And I think then you can start talking about, do you add the specialist shaft back in there? Or do you have the shaft from the set in there? And then you have a conversation around about a full shot or a chip and a pitch.
Yeah, I think the simplest way to be would be if you're just wanting something just to point and shoot and hit basically full shots, the set wedge is often the right way to go. There's often a little bit more forgiveness built into those, especially once you go into any form of cavity back. There are some cavity back specialist wedges, but generally speaking, if it's not partial shots you're hitting, if it's majority is full shots, and it's just a bit of forgiveness and just as simpler full swing as possible, the set wedge is generally the better way to go. The moment spin control, flight control, distance control start to become more important, i.e. playing half shots and field shots, the outer set wedge, the grooves are cut differently and they are going to hold spin a little hard. They're designed for the partial shots a little bit more.
Depends what type of player you are as well, what speeds you are at. If you've got a lower spin, a lower speed player, you might want a little bit of go in there in the get wedges still. If you've got someone who's at high speed and who's going to get crucial to sort of jumpers in playing season, and then yes, you want to you might want to keep revs up and have a pitch and wedge which isn't going to fly on him.
Yeah, so on tour,
a bit
they'll if they're looking to reduce the jump from the rough as much as possible and maintain spin from those sort of lies as much as possible, that's where they might go into specialist wedge instead of the set pitch wedge. But they're playing to tucked pins, rock hard greens, and actually, it's getting closer. I take Titleist, talk about Titleist earlier, their latest range, the grooves in the pitch wedge and the A wedge in the T100 150 are the same as in the Vokeys of the similar loft. So there's less of a difference than there used to be. But I think for me, the moment you go into kind of partial swings and looking to retain as much spin as possible, then the outer set wedge just wins out for me for that. But as you could glean, everything wedges are shades of grey. There are lots of different ways of doing it that aren't necessarily. There isn't necessarily a absolutely right and wrong element to it. There are different ways you can do it, and they can all be viable options. Yeah,
gather the info and go from there. Really.
Sully Sard 3266. Hi, does changing the weight, size, and position on a GT3 driver, Touch GT3 driver, help with better ball strikes for heel or toe hits? Would you add or remove weight? Thanks.
I like to get the weight personally behind the hit zone. Rather than use it as a little bit. You can use it for a little bit of face stuff, but I'd rather get it.
It's marginal, yeah.
It's so small, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you're better off getting that shaft unit in a perfect place and treating that, and then getting some mass behind the hit.
Yeah, ultimately, that heel toe bias that you can use on the GT3 is about essentially by putting it behind the strike point, you're minimizing the gearing on that strike point. So if you hit it out the toe, you put the weight in the toe, because if you put it in the heel, you're moving the center of gravity further away from that strike point, and then it gears more, so you're going to get more of a knuckle and a ducker. So you're actually managing solidity of feel, for one, but also managing the gear effect and the loss of performance off on that kind of strike pattern. So, and generally, you'd use the amount of weight to dial in the balance of the club and the timing. If you're going shorter, then a heavier weight will help just to retain a bit of feel for the head, longer and a lighter weight. But you're using the position really to manage. For me, it'd be really for strike point more than pretty much more than anything else.
Well, we will do that during the fitting. We will, and again, it could be GT3, it could be colorway, it could be pink, it could be all the other ones. We will test certain weights and certain adaptations, whether it's forward weight system, does it drive to suit you better, or does it a ping with a back weight system suit you better? And again, we will play around with those sort of weight positions and see what happens.
And so then second question from Sully Sard as well. Recently bought a Diamana BB43S for the GT3 driver. Total club length 45 inches. Even with a lighter weight, 4 grams down from 10 grams, this club still feels head heavy. Should I add weight to the handle of the shaft? So potentially depends on what grip you've got. Not potentially, does depend on what grip you've got. If you've got a particularly light grip, then it's going to make the swing weight a little bit heavier. And you're removing mass from the top end and making it swing head heavy. Ultimately, the blue board in the 43 isn't overly tip heavy, so it's not the shaft setup doing that.
Especially if it's got that light weight in the head as well. They're not really heavy heads, really, are they? The Titleist.
No, not massively. Pretty neutral.
If it was a ping, you could possibly say that yes, the head might be you'd want to get the head weight weighed and checked. But I think you've probably
it may be that actually you need a counterbalance shaft. You can put a bit of weight under the grip end, but it's still it might just be that you need the shaft to have the balance point higher up. And if that's the case, you've got something like, if you need it really high up, then VA Nemesis 45 would do the trick. But that's probably a more expensive change than you were thinking of. But it's worth trying it, certainly. If there's a system you can use where you can put a little kind of back weight into it that can be removed, then that's a good way of doing it. But if it still feels head heavy with that shaft, with that head weight in, chances are you need some back weighting going on. David OH7, great thoughts on Aeroterra, thank you very much. How would you compare it to Ventus Blue profile? I mean, the grey in terms of tip stiffness is more like the Ventus Blue. Yeah, I would say. The blue is more. Ventus Red is not a high launch shaft.
No, it's not.
The blue is a little more Ventus Red like.
Yeah.
Ventus Red is still stable as a profile.
Yeah, and don't forget out there that the Ventus lineups have switched around from OG to the newer versions. Then you also see you've obviously got the new TR, which is just launched, and then you've got red and black new TR, which will be coming
launching,
soon.
Yeah.
So
and they
again,
swing a
all
lot
these are
more
slightly
tip stout.
changing.
The blue TR, the new blue TR swings a lot more tip heavy.
Yeah, big time. Yeah,
it's definitely a hitter's shaft, that for sure. Charlie Blake, what type of player is the Project X IO shaft for? So it's a slightly lighter weight. So IO stands for individually optimized. So as the stiffness goes up from 5.0 to 5.5 to 6.0 to 6.5, the shaft, the profile stiffens. Rather than just the flex getting stiffer, they shore up the tip section more and more and more. So for someone who doesn't need the full weight of the Project X, but it is a shaft which is no longer made. So other than second hand or someone that happens to have residual stock, you won't find any anywhere. They've been gone a year and a bit now.
I actually play IO. So I actually play the 110 in the 6.0 IO, but I've actually, I was a bit quicker. I've had it for probably 6-7 years. That's probably, I got it when it first came out. I was quite quick in the bottom section, but now I'm going to try switch to a shaft which is a little bit more smoother.
In principle, Project X Red would be the one that's taken over from it.
That'd be the system.
So, and probably in the 6.0, it's probably pretty similar.
Yeah.
But then there's quite a big jump from 100 to 110 in terms of the weights from the 5.5 to the 6, and then again 10 grams up to the 6.5, but 120 grams. But I would say the 6.0 is probably the closest of those to the IO series. It's a bit like the old PXI, which sort of similar. Swung a little more tip heavy, felt a bit more responsive because the butt section wasn't as stiff. But then the IO took over from that, and now the Project X Red is essentially the current version. Colgrove 5441. Someone asked this in a video comment, but when did you start addressing all your shots outside the toe, and how did it help your swing? I've been doing something similar, and it's been night and day. So I get asked this quite a lot, funnily enough, because it looks weird. But actually, so the reason is I've never suffered with shanks, but I get my weight a little over my toes. So when I have the time in the off season to do a bit of swing drills, I'll get my backside a little more that way, and that centers me. And I don't then, at the top of my backswing, I don't do that. So I move there at the top of my backswing, I then stay there through the shot. So essentially, I move a little closer to it, and it helps me find the middle of the face. During the playing season, I'm not buggering about with it because it works. It's something I've done for years. It wasn't conscious. I think I gradually crept a little further away as I felt the strike in the heel, but I would say I've never suffered from shanks. But ultimately, Luke Donald addresses it right out the hosel, which makes me want to vomit. But he then moves back away from it. So it's something that I never wanted to get too far and say during off season I'll get my weight back over my heels a little bit more, and that will mean not moving into it as much. But yeah, just something that gradually occurred over time. But I hit it well, so I can't be asked to change it.
Works, though, doesn't it? Let's be honest.
And that is also the key of if something works for you, as long as you monitor it and don't let it get too far, then there are lots of different ways of playing good golf.
Exactly, there is lots of it, and it's a scoring game. In the end of the day, if you're going to hit a little shot which is actually going to get you there or thereabouts, it's fine enough. And especially now going into the season, maybe play with it and then see what happens, and don't rip it apart during mid-season, and then do a little bit of work off season.
So we've got a few more here. We've got the last few minutes. So we've got CB Golf 94. How do you determine shaft weight increments throughout the bag? Driver fairway hybrid to irons, wedges, 90 to 95 mile an hour driver swing speed, and 87 iron.
It's quite sensitive, so you never should really judge someone with how they come in or how they look and how they feel. Definitely, you never know as a base point what someone's going to be. So you could have someone who's 6'3", 6'4", and then generally he might get masked as being like a heavy shaft guy. Oh, use this, use that, but actually, you could get him swinging, and he could actually really benefit by going something which is a bit lighter, but really sort of quite stable and strong. I had a guy this morning which he struggled with flight and struggled with anything heavy, and he'd got put into like 125 gram, 130 gram, 120 gram, and he's like constantly battling over the last 2 years, going and just buying stuff off the shelf at that, or just going to certain places and getting fit into that. And they sort of And I was like, they've sort of seen you coming a little bit. And we went a little bit, again, we went mid-balance, light, but really stable for him. Yeah. And you got into a really nice place.
Yeah, I suppose things like steel fibres could do quite well.
Yeah, so stuff like that is good. But generally, I guess they step it. Generally, it normally steps from driver, which is obviously lighter, and then steps down from fairway, hybrid, and then into the irons, which will be this sort of linear.
I think what you'll probably notice is neither of us is committing to what that progression is, because it's what you test and what works best.
Yeah.
So in theory, you might go, if you're a 60-gram driver shaft, you're probably a 70-ish, low 70s fairway shaft and a mid to low 80s hybrid shaft and then a 100-gram. But it just doesn't necessarily work that way.
No,
some players would play a lighter fairway shaft than driver.
Yeah,
it just works.
Yeah, you'd never really know. And I've had, sometimes you actually have you might change the balance point from driver, fairway, hybrid.
Yeah.
But you could have the weights at linear, so they could all be the same. And then it's like, okay, it sort of it works for that player.
Yeah, ultimately the theory is great in that, in theory, all else being equal, a progression in weight means same energy required to get the club moving. But the problem is it's golfers don't necessarily work that way. So ultimately, whatever works best, and you can put a logic behind why it works best, that dictates everything. But you generally would see, obviously, an upward trend as you go from driver down to wedges. But that's about all we could say, because it could be one person, it's going to be totally different to the next. Right, let's get through these last few. Pay no swings. There's a few comments. Hi Simon, hope all's well. If you had unlimited budget, what driver would you fit yourselves into? The right one. Sounds a really crap answer, but actually the right one. I mean, we've got some Derrimac shafts which are made by have Olympic materials that look really interesting, and I like the idea of, but I'm only going to use it if it works.
Yeah.
And then headwise again, whatever is best. I really liked the idea of the AK driver shaft, but it couldn't be worse for me because it's upper mid balance point, and I need it in the tip.
There's certain shafts that come in because they have a nice shiny paint surface or a certain look. You're like, oh, please work, please.
Yeah.
And you do have other customers that come in, and you have it both ways actually. You have one which you could have someone who wants like a really colourful shaft, and you're like, there's a grey shaft or a black shaft. We could have the opposite where you could go through the fit and you could give someone a bright green shaft. I had it the other day, bright green shaft, worked wonders, gained them 25 yards. And he was like, I can't have green.
Does it come in a different colour?
Oh no.
Yeah. But I think for us in here, it's always a case of we might like the idea of testing something, but it either works or it doesn't.
Yeah.
So it just has to be, ultimately, it's got to outperform tangibly what I've got. I'm going to be doing, once the GTSs come in, I'm going to be doing a proper driver kind of test through and see if I can beat my old TSR, which has been performing well recently. But it's got to be tangibly better. How does the adjustable front weight work on the TaylorMade QI10 LS? That one is the QI10. That was the sliding heel toe?
Yeah, the sliding system.
So exactly like the GT3, slide into the toe to minimise toe gearing and that knuckle, move it into the heel, and if your strike point's toe side, or move it into the heel if your strike point's heel side to manage the miss pattern. And then how does the TaylorMade loft adjuster work? For every notch you lofted up, they've got 1.5 to 2 degrees. Is it 2 degrees? No, 2 degrees plus minus.
Yeah, and then it's 125, 075.
Yeah. So it's kind of 3/4 of a degree. It's basically 2/3 of a degree per adjustment, and that will adjust lie as well. So you're using that to adjust loft, face angle, and the lie to just help either flatten it to hold the flight to try and not miss left, and upright to not miss right. Yeah. I think that answered that, and then what's a good recommendation for a neutral grip, and how does adding more layers of tape work? Adding more layers of tape ultimately is just allowing you to fill your hands out, so you haven't got to, you're too small, and you have to hold onto it tight to stop it moving around in your hands. So you're trying to get as little grip pressure required to get control of the club. Too big, and you can lose some fluidity of the hands and have to hold onto it tight. Too small, and it can move around in your hands, and you have to hold onto it tight. So you're trying to get as much freedom through your hands as possible to reduce to require as little grip pressure as possible. Right, we've got 3 more here, and then we'll wrap up. So Stuart Pollock, 84, got fitted in 2014 with Project X 6.5 shafts and was considered getting fitted for graphite shafts as they now feel like a chore to hit. But your answer about butt end weighting might be what's needed. I would say chances are that less weight is needed. If we're looking at 12 years back, 6.5s are heavy.
Yeah,
they're right at the top end of the weight window. But graphite is a big change. So you might find that actually a 5.5 drop 5 grams or so out, or you're in a 6.5. So a 6 or a 5.5 going from 125 to 115 in the 5.5, that could be a really good way to go.
Yeah, has flight changed as well over the years? Did you used to a higher peak with higher peak? Has your speed changed as well over that time? Are you in a
You've got
different
so
place
many
now?
options between a Project X 6.5 and the graphites that you could do yourself a load of damage by just knee-jerking into a graphite when actually you've got potentially 20 grams worth, 15 grams worth of options, whether they're Project X, whether they're Nippon Modus, whether they're Axioms, whether they're KBSs. You've got so many options out there that I think what you're talking about could be way too exaggerated as a change. Kushal Thapa 4543. Hi, someone would be able to explain about Miura PI 402, please. So the PI 402s are Miura's latest head. They have got a little bit of tech built into the face. So they're one of their most forgiving heads. There's a little bit of sole angle. I'm going to grab a head very quickly. There's a bit of sole angle to help turf interaction. But what you have with the PI 402s is, I'll show you, that is the sole profile angle, much like the Strixons, to help it exit the turf. But you've got that little bit of a cavity into the back, that little cutaway in there. There's a bit of a faster face on that. These are strong hitting heads. They're strong lofted and they come off like SH1T off a shovel. They go. And
well, they still remain a nice Miura feel, to be honest, don't they?
As much as you can with a multi-material construction, but they are their answer to essentially
pretty damn close.
Probably not quite a T250 P790, but not a million miles off. And then final one, we'll go Colgrove 5441. LOL, thank you for explaining. This is obviously about the addressing it right at the toe. Mine's posture for sure. 2 back surgeries prior to 41. That would do it. I tried every other drill, but set up outside toe allow me to swing my swing. Thanks for answering. And again, the key thing, swing your swing. What you've just explained is why you probably have a slightly less orthodox setup than most. Your plane and patterns will be a little different based on you've probably got some bits of metalwork in your spine. So so ultimately do what works for you. If it's repeatable, stick to it. Yeah, repeatable, and also try or with whether it's seeing us and we'll give you this information, or with your coach, learn about how your body moves within the golf swing and which way are you more efficient in moving. I would say, and that's a really nice sort of snippet just to give away that. Have a word with your coach and what shot shape should you be feeling with your body movement. That's good. So thank you very much for all the questions. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. It's always fun with the other kids in here, the back and forth. So always great fun with Lewis and the coaches as well. We don't want to leave them out. But hope you enjoyed the show tonight. What do you want to? It's a key event this week. I think it is. It's not Colonial, but I can't remember what it's called. It's one of the kind of the main PGA tournaments. Not long till PGA Championship. They're coming thick and fast now. Hope you enjoy your week of golf coming up. Hope you enjoy whatever coverage is on the TV, and we'll see you. We won't see you next Monday because it's a bank holiday here in the UK. So there will be one Monday off, and then we're back on because then we'll be back from France as well. So we won't see you next Monday, but we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. James and I will have done a trip to Bordeaux with 20 or so clients. So we will be sober when we get back, I promise. But thank you for watching. Thanks for the questions. Thanks to Jasper. Cheers. See you in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks, guys.